One team that we haven't heard much of this offseason has been the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I don't think this is all for bad reason. As we know, the Buffalo Sabres have not been good over the past decade plus. You can see here, 37% winning percentage and absolutely no playoff experience over this last decade to put under their belt. But I don't think this will continue for too much longer. The Buffalo Sabres are a team who have been on the way up over the past few years, and last year I had them making the playoffs over the Boston Bruins. Grill me if you want, I already did it myself, and so did Nick and Noah. But I think that the Buffalo Sabres have a serious chance of making the playoffs over these next few years, and potentially going even further than they have, probably in their history, which is to the Stanley Cup. You know, this team, I gotta say, has a lot of young talent that's gonna be very exciting to watch, in Zach Benson, Jiri Kulich, Noah Ostlund, Matt Savoie, Jack Quinn. You know, these guys, I think these are seriously talented guys that need to make the NHL. But Nick, just before we get into the stuff of what they might need to do to actually get to that point, what do you think of the roster they have right now, just as a whole, not the prospects, but the NHL roster?
Well, we know that magical line they had last year up front. If you want to just throw up the lines there, we had Tage Thompson, Alex Tuch, and Jeff Skinner. That was a great line. We've seen a little bit of a resurgence for Jeff Skinner's career the last couple of years, which I think is very welcome news for Buffalo Sabres fans, because that contract and the stats he was putting up the last couple of years were, before that, were just absolutely not good. They weren't good. As for the Sabres, they almost made it last year. It was so close. And I actually didn't have them making the playoffs. I did have Boston making the playoffs. So you guys reap that one, not me. I had them in the playoffs. Not as good as what they were, obviously, but I did have them there. But with that roster they have right now, the forwards, I think, are good. I think they're going to have a lot of those guys coming up next year. I don't know if Zach Benson's going to make the team out of camp. That could happen, and they might give him another year somewhere else. I don't know. As for defense, though, they have a great left side, like left shooting defenseman Samuelson, Power, Dahlin. Jokiharju is a right-hand defenseman, but he's playing the left side. The right side, I believe we were talking about this earlier, needs to get better. I mean, Eric Johnson's not a bad guy to have down on your third pairing. Connor Clifton cannot be on your second pairing. A playoff team is not going to have Connor Clifton on their second pairing. I'm sorry. Like, even if you wanted to switch Eric Johnson and Connor Clifton there, it might be a little bit better. Eric Johnson maybe can't carry a load like he used to be able to for a team, but I mean, I would still switch him with Connor Clifton, because you know what Eric Johnson's capable of. He played a very steady defensive game for most of his career. So I think they would need to work on their right shot defense, as for every team around the NHL needs to work on their right shot defense almost. I mean, except for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And there's a few other teams, obviously, that have right-handed defensemen. But we mentioned this in previous videos. Right-handed shot defensemen that are very skilled and very good offensively and defensively. A very good two-way game it's very hard to come by in today's NHL, and that's why they're so sought after. You'll see a lot of them not getting overpaid per se, but they get a little bit more than what they would have gotten if they were a left shot defenseman kind of thing. And as for goalies, I think we were talking about this earlier as well. Devin Levi is obviously they're going to be their prized possession. They're going to try to start him, I would say, at the start of the season. And Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is obviously going to be given a shot, I feel like, as well. What I would do personally, I wouldn't get rid of one of those guys yet. I would see who's going to be your number one, give them both a shot, and maybe if they need something else going down the stretch, maybe a deadline acquisition. I mean, we can talk about their cap space later, but they've definitely got some to do a deal with, maybe with one of those goalies out and take in someone's contract, maybe for a playoff run. Like if they're down the stretch and they think they can make it, which I think they'll be in that position again this year. They were only 1 point out last year, so I like the Buffalo Sabres roster. There is work to be done, though.
Yeah, no, I like what you said. We will be going over it later in this video, the cap space and what they can do, but you're absolutely right. Another right-handed defenseman would definitely help to replace Connor Clifton. At least give him a chance, though, to start off the season. I think that maybe he might swing around back, like, to being a pretty solid defenseman on what they have with the left side. You're absolutely right. Jokiharju is a right-handed defenseman, but he has played both sides the entire time in his career with Chicago and Buffalo. And you did change my opinion on with the goalies. Before the video, we were talking about it. I'm saying maybe they could trade one of them, but I think that you're right. They got to give him a chance and see for just give him a season's worth of games as a whole, split them between Eric Comrie, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and Devin Levi. I think that you want to see what guy is ready to be in the NHL right now, or maybe even see what guy might need a bit of a bit more experience before they get to that point. But that's absolutely right. And if you did,
I don't think it's a bad thing to have those three goalies there. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but Eric Comrie and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Devin Levi, that's not a bad thing to have those three goalies. You're going to see that problem if Montreal is unable to flip Casey DeSmith as well, with Jake Allen and Samuel Montembeault. I feel like it's a similar situation here with Devin Levi is going to have that position, I feel like, going into the season. Like, everyone has been talking about Devin Levi, Sabres fans. Like, everyone around the league has been – I know there's a lot of people saying he's very similar to Carey Price, as Carey Price was his hero growing up. Wouldn't that be something to see in Buffalo with that roster they've got? I feel like that roster they have right now is better than any team Montreal has ever had with Carey Price. So at least the guy's going to start off with some better luck than Carey Price. But with those three guys, Eric Comrie, if there's any injury to him, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is probably going to be the odd man out. But if Eric Comrie is injured or if Devin Levi gets injured, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is going to come in there and show why he was also a top prospect for the Buffalo Sabres as well. So just to add on to what you were saying there, a three-man goalie situation at this point is not necessarily a bad thing.
Oh yeah, it's not bad at all. And there's many teams in the NHL who are currently looking for a goalie that they're probably willing to give a chance to be able to start in the NHL. Maybe a team that's rebuilding might want a guy like Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, or maybe want a guy like Devin Levi, depending on what Buffalo's willing to do with them. But what you said about being able to trade one of them with the contracts, you can see they have a lot of people who are expiring next year, and like they might need to move a guy to be able to pull someone in the deadline. They're going to have a lot of people to re-sign next year, if they do choose to re-sign them. Obviously, the big one here is Rasmus Dahlin, Victor Olofsson, the guys like that who are going to need a new contract next year, and they're going to be wanting a lot of money. And with the cap space they have right now, currently $6 million, and having a few more people expire next year, they're going to have to bring up a few of the prospects that they have. Maybe not Zach Benson, like you said, but Jiri, Kulich, Noah Ostlund, Jack Quinn, who was in the NHL last year for a few games. I think it's going to be those guys' turn to step up, to make the next step, instead of having to re-sign some guys, to be able to give Dahlin, be able to give Olofsson that money that they absolutely deserve. Because, it's obviously a big part of this team going forward is their prospects, and the people they've had now on this team, like Jeff Skinner, Kyle Okposo, they've been there forever. They've been there for probably the whole tenure of how bad the Buffalo Sabres have been. So I think it's time to get these new guys in, get the lineup fresh. Obviously, Jeff Skinner's making a lot of money at $9+ million, but I think if he can step up, because he was playing very good last year. Not $9 million good, but I think if he continues that contract won't be as bad as it looks, It's obviously not what you want in that situation. Nobody's going to take that contract, I wouldn't say, maybe, unless it's the Arizona Coyotes, which they kind of don't really know what they're doing themselves at this point, signing Matt Dumba for no reason, pretty much. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with these prospects. But Nick, what do you think about the movement into these guys? Like, I know you were talking about Zach Benson earlier, maybe not making the roster, but the contracts that they have expiring, which is an absolute lot, you can see. What do you think that do you think the prospects are going to have to take a huge step up in this team going forward into this next year? Or do you think they can give them time and work with what they have this year, maybe re-sign a few guys and go into the next season and hope for the playoffs over the next few years? We don't really know with them.
Well, I think that it's a good thing that they still have the extra year with those guys, because that gives the prospects a little bit of time. Like, there's no pressure for Buffalo to bring up these prospects right now. Just put them in a position there that you want them in for this season, where you think the development is the best. And if they can come up to the NHL, there's guys that can maybe move out of the way. They can probably trade some of those guys, because there's going to be people looking for – obviously there's always people looking for rentals at the trade deadline. So it's easy to move some of those guys. And then you can bring up the prospects if they're ready to be in that position. But if they're not ready to be in that position – you can keep those guys until the end of the year, and you can resign whoever you wish or whoever you can, or you can get rid of them and you can let the prospects come in. I think they're in a pretty good position with that right now.
Yeah, absolutely they are. And one name I forgot to mention too was Owen Power, coming off his ELC, looking for a new contract as well. But it's going to be a very interesting year for the Buffalo Sabres. I would say a very exciting year to be a Buffalo Sabres fan as well. Like you said, flip someone at the deadline maybe. There's a lot of contracts that are being capable of doing that. They don't have too many major contracts that are expiring, so someone maybe in the middle of the pack making $3 million, flip them 50%, 1.5 mil. Teams are going to be very interested in that. So I think it's going to be very exciting to see what the Buffalo Sabres do this upcoming season and the seasons after. But let us know in the comments what you think the Buffalo Sabres will do if they make another move in the offseason, or what they should do next year going forward. So let us know. Want to hear it. Love reading your comments. It's very, very exciting just to see what everybody has to say, the conversation. We love hockey. I'm sure you do as well. So that's all we got. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, subscribe, and you're going to have a lot more content coming. Hope you enjoy. Thank you for watching. See you later.